Welcome to Airworks 2020. I'm really excited that you're here and sit down with me for the next 20 minutes so we can talk about moving the industry forward with purposeful training. My name is Greg Reverdio, and I'm the lead instructor and the owner of Pilot Institute. At the moment, we have 33,000 students and almost 38,000 enrollment in our system. I have been doing this for almost 20 years now, been in the aviation training industry. I'm a certified flight instructor with the FAA, I'm a commercial pilot, and obviously I'm also a remote pilot. I also teach at a university. I have a master's degree in aviation human factors from the Florida Institute of Technology, or Florida Tech as it's called today. And I want to bring you a little bit of perspective from having taught all these students, both in the classroom and in person, and both in the UAS world and also in the manned aircraft world. The reason I wanted to talk about all of this is because when Airworks came out, I looked at the list of all the different topics, and I was surprised to actually see nothing about training. You can find information about construction, about the energy sector, you can talk about public safety and agriculture, but there's really nothing that's dedicated to training. I went to other conferences this year and I found the same thing at other conferences, so I thought, let's bring this topic because I think it's an important topic. Are we not talking about training because we've done everything that we can in the training area? Or can we improve in the current training practices that we have and make sure that we have the topic of this conversation, more purposeful training? What are we doing at the moment that is right, and what else can we do to improve our training world? And the first thing I want to look at is how are we doing this at the moment? How are we currently training pilots? And the way that we're training pilots right now obviously is with Part 107. If you go on Google and you type Part 107 training, you're going to get a million different results. Most of the ones that you're going to see popping up are from places that want you to pass the test. They want you to do the minimum amount of work to get this 70% or more on the exam and become a remote pilot. If you go on YouTube, there's even a 2-hour video that's very popular where you can basically supposedly receive all the training that you need in 2 hours, go to the testing center and pass the exam. Now my question to you is, can we really move forward in this industry and be taken seriously if we can get a certificate in 2 hours? And by the way, the question is you can't watch a 2-hour video and pass the exam. That doesn't work. The first step of what we need to do here is we need to change the culture. We need to change the mindset of people that are getting into this business. We get questions every single day at Pilot Institute, and I see them pop, or even my staff brings them to me sometimes. And one of the big one is, what is the fastest way that I can do this? My boss said that I need to be flying next week, or sometimes even in 2 days. And can I get this done in 2 days? And guess what? The answer is no, you can't get this done in 2 days. You can't get this done in 1 week. We actually recommend that you study for at least 2 weeks before you go to the exam, or at least 20 hours. The other question that I get a lot is, do I really need to know this? Do I really need to know about airports? Do I really need to know about traffic pattern? I'm never going to fly near an airport. And you know the answer to this. Obviously, yes, you do, because your license allows you to fly near an airport. Another question that I get, and this one is, how will the FAA even know that I'm flying there? Or how does the FAA know that I'm flying in controlled airspace and I don't have authorization? These are all results of a culture. These are the results of a mindset that we need to get rid of in this industry. And I went back and I thought, why is this happening? I look back at my training. I went through pilot training with the Florida Institute of Technology, and I look back at why I have these values, why these values were transferred to me. And part of the reason was because I had a flight instructor. That flight instructor sat next to me and throughout my entire training said, you can do this, you can do this, and here's the reason why. And there are 3 things that were really emphasized to me. The training must be taken seriously. There are consequences if you don't do the training seriously, because you're going to be sitting inside the airplane. And I know this doesn't really apply as a drone pilot because you're not sitting in the airplane, which is one of the critiques from people that often say, well, drone pilots don't have a skin in the game. Well, we need to have a skin in the game. We need to be understanding that there is somebody else on the other side that is sitting in the airplane. The second thing that was instilled to me by my instructor was you have to follow the rules. And I remember one of my old college professors used to say the rules were written in blood. And this is true. All these regulations that we have with the FAA in general have been written in blood. Somebody had done something that required that we had regulation put in place. And the last thing that I always learned from my instructor was it will take the time that it takes in order for you to be proficient and meet the standards. And this is important. We have standards. We already have standards in place with the ACS in the Part 107 world. How do we make sure that we can accomplish these standards with meaningful training? The way I looked at it, I thought about the structure that we have in the manned aircraft world. And the structure that we have at the moment is a mentor. Somebody is there with a mentor. A student is taught by an instructor. The instructor himself or herself were at one point a student who had a mentor. And not only that, but the instructors were evaluated by someone. They had to get a certificate to become a flight instructor. But not only that, the certificate is one thing, but they had to make sure that they had the knowledge, which is important. And not only that, they had to be taught how to teach. And I'm going to say that again. They had to be taught to teach. A flight instructor has to go through training, it's called Fundamental of Instructing, on how to teach other people, how people learn, and how you're going to get this knowledge across. And I think this is a key that's often overseen when we talk about flight instructors and talk about people that are taught to train. And the last thing is we have a student that was actually evaluated by a Czech pilot. Now you're going to say, why are you saying all this? What does that have to do with the UAS industry? Well, it has to do with the UAS industry because I think we can learn a lot from the manned aircraft world. I don't think we can transfer everything. I don't think we have necessarily a need for a flight instructor per se, but I think there needs to be something put in place, and probably starting with the FAA. The first thing that I think the FAA should consider is having a program for flight training programs that are rigorous enough that they could meet the equivalent of a Part 141 program. If you're not familiar with Part 141 programs, the FAA oversees what the operation is at a flight school, and everything gets stamped by the FAA, and they are recognized for having a program that is above the average, if you want. Another thing that the FAA should put in place is establish a ground instructor certificate for UAS specifically. Now you notice I didn't say flight instructor certificate. We don't have a flight requirement to fly the drones, and I don't think at this stage from discussions with the FAA, I don't think it's going to happen. But with that being said, a ground instructor certificate would ensure that someone knows how to teach, that when you go to get training from someone and you receive training, that you make sure that they actually know how to teach all this information and that they have the knowledge as well. The next thing that we should be doing, and I know the FAA is working on this and I'm really excited about this, is establish a program for renewal of the license that is based on real life experience and continuing education rather than simply passing a test. And I'm going to call it a meaningless test because quite frankly, that's what it is. A 40-question test that has most of the topics removed is not something that's meaningful. It's a piece of paper that we have to check, but it doesn't really mean much of anything. If we put in place something like the WINGS program, and I know the FAA is working on this, which is really exciting, then you can have people that instead of going back in the books and studying for a 40-question test, they can actually receive meaningful training from real life experience, whatever qualifies. We also need to have the FAA, and I know this is a lot of to-dos for the FAA, but I think the FAA has a big role in this because they are our regulator. We need to have enforcement statistics that are going to be published by the FAA because the FAA will never know that I'm flying over here. This needs to go away. We need to get rid of this mentality, and this needs to be automatic. Well, I'm not going to fly there because the FAA is going to find out and I'm going to lose my certificate. Or even better, I'm not going to fly there because there's a reason why I can't fly there, because there's other people flying in the airspace and I can put their life at risk. This is a completely different mindset, but this is something that we need to instill to our students. And lastly, I think we need to continue the efforts from not only the FAA, but also from UAS manufacturers. And I know this is a DJI conference, and I would love to see that DJI gets more involved with providing some sort of training or even basic information about regulation to pilots. And this is more talking about hobbyists. I know I want to talk about more Part 107 in here, but hobbyists also need to be educated. And this is the first step. This is how we change the mindset, is by changing this, the very beginning. If you get the good habit from day one, then you're going to continue getting this habit, and you're going to want to go up and continue getting trained and receiving knowledge as you become a commercial pilot and even further. So how can you help? How can you're a professional, if you're watching this, you have an interest in training, maybe you're even looking to start your own training program for your own company. There are some things that you can do. And the first one is to choose a provider that's not going to let you out easy. Someone who's not going to just teach you to pass the test. Someone who's going to teach you to proficiency. And this is key. This is so important. You also need to create a safety culture in your organization. Once you have enough pilots that are flying for you, again, I'm assuming that you are in an organization that has several pilots. You need to have that safety culture, and you need to enforce it. This is also extremely critical. And lastly, you need to insist on having flight proficiency in addition to knowledge proficiency. And I'm going to get back to this in a minute and how we've actually been very successful with doing this, because let's face it, Part 107 gives you a paper certificate that says you pass an exam. It doesn't mean that you know how to fly the drone. You might ask, why is this important? Why do we really care about this? There's a lot of reasons why we care. I'm going to give you just a few right here, but I'm sure you can think of plenty more for why we need to do this the right way. First off, purposeful and meaningful training is going to lead to different things. It's going to lead to better decision making and better risk assessment. These are two key parts of the FAA training, but I think they're under-tested, quite frankly. The ADM section of the aeronautical decision-making section of the Part 107 training should be key. There should be actually the most questions on the exam should be about risk management. That's just my personal thing. This leads to several things. It leads to lower liability because you have a person that can make better risk assessment. They can make better decisions to fly, which means less liability. This also leads to fewer incidents. These two things are going to lead to three different things. They're going to lead to cheaper insurance. And we all know that the insurance world is what holds this whole industry together. The entire aviation industry, quite frankly, is run by the insurance. And I hope this is not something controversial to say. Pretty much everybody knows that. This also leads to fewer regulation. And I'm going to even say fewer meaningless regulation. We don't need more regulation at this stage. We need more people that follow the regulation, understand the regulation, and everything will go just fine. And then it's going to lead to a better reputation for us as an industry. The UAS industry is on the watch right now by industries, aviation industries, I should say, that have been around for much longer than we have. And we need to pass that test, because if we want to be accepted as an industry, we have to make sure that we have a good reputation and a reputation for good training. And the reason I'm saying all this is because it works. And why does it work? It works because from day one at Pilot Institute, we have been training our students to proficiency. This has been our motto from the day that we started doing this kind of training. Our students receive not only ground training, but they also receive flight training that is geared towards more than passing the test. Passing the test is one thing. It's not good enough. You need to be proficient, and you need to be able to basically answer any questions that are thrown at you because you have the knowledge and not because you memorize something on a piece of paper. Most programs out there have maybe 6 or 7 hours of training. Ours actually has 13 hours of training. And when I designed the course, I didn't design it with the number of hours in mind. I just went through everything that I thought you needed to know, and it turned out to be 13 hours of content. We actually include way more than multiple choice questions in there. There's a lot of ways that people can learn, and one of them that I'm the most proud of is scenario-based training. Scenario-based training is going to test your knowledge way past the rote memory level. I'm going to talk about that in a second. With over 30,000 students that have gone through our program, our pass rate exceeds 99.6%. And our students on average on the FAA exam get 93. That's a massive score, 93%. But more importantly, they are knowledgeable. Passing the test is one thing, but they are knowledgeable and they can be reacting to anything that is being thrown at them. Also, the reason that it works is we have flying skills in addition to the knowledge. We have a maneuvers course that is based on flight proficiency. I actually cheated. I went to my old training as a flight instructor, and I looked at what we were doing to receive basic skills. We call them the stick and rudder skills to fly the airplane. And I applied the same thing to flying a drone. And I created a list of 50 maneuvers that people can practice in order to become more proficient. It starts with something very basic, going forward, going back, going up, going down, and then you start adding more complexity. And this has been very well received by the students because they go out to the field and they practice and they love it, because at the end of it, they become much better pilots, not only in their head with their knowledge, but also with their flying skills. And the scenario-based training is going to test your knowledge not only at the rote memory level, but at the correlation level, where you're going to apply the knowledge to make a decision. And this is also very important. You can see right here, I'm not going to read the testimonials because I think they speak for themselves, but we have students that love the fact that we don't teach to the test. And even someone said here, none of the questions on the exam were exactly what I had seen before, but the course helped me basically pass the test. We have people in here that get 97%. We get 97, 98, 100 on a regular basis on the exam. And this is just amazing. And you can see again another testimonial here from a happy customer. And another testimonial here talking about how you don't just memorize stuff, you actually know the content. And I'm really excited to continue this discussion right now for the next few minutes and answer some of the questions that you have. And if we don't have enough time, I also have a brain date scheduled for 11 o'clock, which is in about 20 minutes, where we're going to be discussing. There's only 4 slots available, so make sure that you go and reserve this. If I can't talk to you on brain date right now, I can actually open a new one as well in the future, or you can send me an email at greg@pilotinstitute.com, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions or even open a discussion. So let's take some Q&As right here.